So welcome back to In My Opinion, and today we are going to talk about history. My general question today is going to be, what is history? Now, the answer is not going to be typical, that history is a continuous dialogue between a historian and his facts and all of that E.H. Carr stuff. My question as to what is history is about, is history what happened in the past, or is history what people want you to believe what happened in the past, or what is represented to have happened in the past? Whether or not it actually happened does not matter. And I ask this question from the perspective of an Indian who was told throughout his schooling years that Mughal rulers were they were great kings who developed India. Their history is most elaborately, most comprehensively discussed in our textbooks, and no one knows about the Chola rulers comprehensively. No one knows about Vijayanagar Empire until they are in class 12th. No one knows about, a home kingdom. No one knows about. We don't even know about, the Marathas. We don't know about the Rajputs, who they were, what different kingdoms. I was confused. Marwar, Mewar, and all of the other Jodhpur, these Rajput kingdoms, what they were, where they were geographically. But no one is confused about the succession of Mughals from Babur all the way to, Bahadur Shah Zafar II. So the bigger question is, why is it so? Why our history is history of Mughals? Why our history is history? Why our history is a history of foreign invaders, despotic animals, and murderers and destroyers of temples? And then why do we celebrate that history? And here I can talk about Marxist ideas and all of that, but maybe we'll keep that for another video. Today we'll just talk about the representation of history versus the happenings of the past. So when no one for some reason asks questions as bluntly to make things simple. I watch some of these TV debates about history, about Hinduism, and about so many other things, but no one like in the audience or even the anchor, they never ask questions plain and simple. So why should we complicate questions by allowing subjectivity to enter? Ask simple questions. First, start with this very question: that is history what happened in the past, or is history what some elitist people want everyone to believe what happened in the past? Obviously, history is what happened in the past and not the latter. But whoever is in right mind will say that it's the prior and not the latter. And so then the next question is, if history is what happened in the past and not a representation of fake events or false fabricated truth, then why the initial regime of independent India focused on hiding the truth about Mughal rulers and their atrocities, their massacres, their destruction of temples? Why was that kept from the people? Why was it not highlighted in the books of young children? Now, people might say that young children's minds are warped, but what is warping? The question is, what is warping? Is warping telling the truth, or is warping telling the lie? Your mind is not warped when you are telling the truth. It is shaped, not warped. There is a difference. When it is shaped, it can be molded to see things for what they are. When it is warped, it is told a lie to see things in a specific way. But if anything, warping is what was done to us rather than what would have happened if the truth was told, but it was never. And next thing, then once it is clear that, of course, the truth was kept from us by the initial regimes, then what was their reason? The next question is, why? And would you criticize the initial regime? The Congress spokespersons should be asked this question directly, that would they criticize the initial regime for hiding the truth? Would they criticize the initial regime for not telling the truth? Of course, they would say that they did this for the larger good of the public, for the social harmony and all that nonsense. But my question then would be, I have a counter question then. So you always talk about unity and diversity. This is a unity and diversity bullshit. Is of course a creation of Congress as well. My question is, if you believed in this idea of unity and diversity so much, if you believed in this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb so much, then why did you have to hide this truth from the general people of this country, especially the Hindus, the Sikhs, and the Jains and Buddhists of this country who suffered at the hands of foreign animals? The next question is, if they answer this question, then why did they have to hide this truth? If they believed that these foreign animals, which I also believe had nothing to do with the present day generations of Indian people who belong to the same religion, and I'm very clear, I believe that they have nothing to do with the present day Muslims or the present day Christians. I'm talking about both the atrocities inflicted upon us by foreign animals of the medieval period and foreign animals of the modern period. So the present generations have nothing to do with the past generations. They are completely free, unless they themselves believe that they are somehow associated with those foreign, murderers, which is completely their thought. Then the question is, why did Congress, which apparently believes in this idea of harmony and believes that the Muslim population of India is peaceful and believes that there is unity in diversity and Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, then why did they have to hide it? Of course, they would have told the truth and would have said this they would have said this to begin with, that this is a truth of Mughals and not of Muslims. This is the truth of the foreign invaders and not of the people of India, not of the citizens of India who live among us. If this had happened in 1947, if this had happened since 1947, today we would not be facing the communal politics that we do. And so when the Congress and the opposition parties say that the communal politics is a creation of BJP, well, my reply to them is that communal politics is entirely a creation of Congress, and it's attempt to whitewash history, its attempt to completely conceal, to completely hide the truths of massacre, the truths of killings, the truths of destruction of temples, which were done by foreign animals, beginning with Mahmud of Ghazni, all the way to these last Afghans, and then Bahadur Shah Zafar II, even if he was useless or did nothing. So this truth was kept from us, from you and from me, and that's the question that we must ask straight away to these politicians, and ask them, and would they criticize the fact that the truth was kept from us? And what is the truth? And if you are willing to compromise on the truth just to appease a community, just to hide the truth of the community, then how can we have any faith in the words that you say anywhere in your manifestos, in your public rallies, in your party constitution, or even the fact your propaganda of vote chori and all of that bullshit which you do? There is nothing credible left in you then. When you began, your party's history started with a lot of lies, not a lie, loads of lies actually. So that's the truth. And this is a question not just to Congress, this is a question generally about history. The question still remains, that what is history? Not in my opinion, it is the truth of the past, and in my opinion it should have been told to us always. Plus, why when we are Indians, when you and I are Indians, why should we be reading history from the perspective of foreigners? Take, for instance, the difference in the way facts are treated or sources are treated. I will want to make another video about this, but I will mention this here, that whenever, so see this, go to any Marxist or any subaltern writer, any writer from even foreign texts, you go there, they will take the words of people like F. Max Mueller and Macaulay by their face value. So they will take whatever is written in the translations of these people, that is acceptable, word to word, and everything is right in those sentences, everything is right, is correct in those translations. But the original texts have to be scrutinized for the style of writing, for the handwriting, for the choice of words, for the time they might have been written in, for the interpolations and all of the bullshit. And nothing of that sort happens with foreign texts, for example. So if anyone knows, we don't have any account of Alexander's invasion from Indian perspective. Anything and everything we know about Alexander's invasion, we know from Greek accounts. So generally speaking, Greek history is of Alexander, and Alexander came from there. So there is a likelihood that Greek history showed things not the way they were. So tell me this: Alexander had been winning all the way on his way to India. So he had been, first of all, he was coming for India, which means that India was a significant economic power, political power then. But in that phase of history, whenever we read in our books, we tend to focus on Alexander's choice of India less, and we tend to focus on the fact that Alexander defeated Purushottam, who is mentioned as Porus in Greek texts. Now the question is, why do we focus on that first and not on the fact that India was so vibrant ever since the before Common Era period, that people, Greeks and other people from the world, wanted to have aspirations of conquering India, or wanted to have aspirations of coming to India and maybe having an empire here. So that should be our focus more, but we don't do that. Instead, we focus on the fact that Purushottam was defeated. But even that is probably not true, considering Purushottam, who was a local chieftain, by the way. He was not even a king he was not a major ruler. He was just a local chieftain in the northwest. He had his local enemies, and Alexander was supported by one of his local enemies. And Alexander, who came to India after defeating, over so many years, so many kingdoms, and expanding his army along the way, he found it hard to defeat this Purushottam, this local chieftain. But it is said that he was terrified of the capacity of the kings who are inside, and his army was exhausted of fighting for so many years. But in my opinion, the truth could be that he actually lost to Purushottam. From what we know, he never reached back. He died months or very soon after his war in India. So it could be that he actually was gravely injured, and that's why he could never reach back to Greece after leaving here. And that's probably also the reason why he never entered into India. Not the fact that he defeated Purushottam, but his army was exhausted, and he was exhausted, so he didn't want to come in. But the truth could be different. I'm not saying it is different. I'm saying it could be different. There are possibilities of both things. But the fact that the historical sources are entirely Greece, and they are about a Greek ruler, and therefore they could be biased in favor of Greek ruler, is a possibility, is my assertion. But that kind of reasoning is never applied by the Marxist historians. Why? Because they want to accept that some foreigner defeated a northwest chieftain of India, but he was so tired of fighting for so many years that he left. Otherwise, he would have defeated Indians too. That's what probably the idea they want to give us. But whenever, let's say, Indian Arthashastra mentions that something was the case, that Indians were not so what is the word? They weren't so discriminating. They didn't treat slaves that badly. If Arthashastra says something like that, they say that these portions which talk about slaves in a good light, or they talk about the society not being so hierarchical, such kind of texts are interpolations. They have been added later, so they cannot be treated as a part of the text. They could not be treated as a true representation of the society. So only those parts which were talking about society as discriminated, or society as discriminating in nature, or society as having slaves, or people being violent or whatever, all of such kind of things are taken as not interpolations. They are completely part of the source. They're entirely acceptable. And any part that talks anything in good light about Indian history, especially ancient Indian history, because that is entirely Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain, and not Muslim, that thing is accepted as interpolation and is completely brushed off. That's the problem with the Marxist historians, and that's what is done systematically. And I've observed it over my reading of history. You go to any text and you see anything that is written good about Indians. For example, Megasthenes. Megasthenes is a foreign writer, and if anyone has a better chance of writing good about India, or writing with greater, deeper knowledge about India, it was Megasthenes, because Megasthenes came to India and lived in Chandragupta's court, lived as a Greek ambassador in Chandragupta's court. If he lived in India, he of course had a better chance of knowing how India was. And he writes that India is not that discriminated society. He talks about 7 classes, but he says that these 7 classes are not differentiated in respect. It is just a work-based or occupational distinction, not really a hierarchy of person or hierarchy of human. And that's what he said. But what is the argument given by these people? They say that because Megasthenes was a royal ambassador, he was an ambassador, he must always have left the palace with an entourage, and his entourage would never have let him observe the things for what they were, and so he could never have had a clear. Are you kidding me? You are basically giving nonsensical excuses to justify the fact that Megasthenes' observation of India was not right. Had it been Megasthenes writing something negative about India, it would have been taken as the biggest truth about something bad about Indian history. And that's the problem with these people. So go ahead and look for yourself. Such things are so common. And I would also ask all the readers of history to read between the lines, because you want to ask this question to yourself: what is history? Is history what happened in the past? past? Is history the truth of the past, or is it the fabricated truth which everyone out there wants you to know, but it is not in fact the truth?